This video is a showcase for a new feature in JpegDigger. It's an actual case where I was asked to recover files. I will paint a picture, I will paint a case. So we're talking about, it was either a memory card or a thumb drive, I'm not really sure. It contained Canon RAW photos, CR2, but these were all corrupt. I was not contacted at this point. The owner of the memory card got the suggestion to try to use Recuva to recover or repair the files. I don't know what they were thinking, but that must have been the idea. Of course, if you have corrupt files that are in themselves corrupt, and you recover them, then you will recover corrupt files. So they discovered this too. Then the person who suggested Recuva gave the tip to format the drive. Now, this doesn't make any sense, but it's a advice I often see in relation to Recuva. Recuva itself is unable to work with a raw drive. It needs to be able to find a file system to recover deleted files, or in case a drive was reformatted, it can also recover the files because the new format is a file system. So it needs a file system to work with. And so a go-to solution appears to be that if Recuva doesn't work, is to try to reformat the drive. Never do this. It will reduce the chances of recovering anything. And this case, in fact, is an example of that. So we have a drive with corrupt raw photos. Try to recover or repair them using Recuva. It of course recovers the same corrupt photos. So then the suggestion comes to format the memory card or thumb drive, after which most of the files cannot even be detected any longer by Recuva. I have what I'm about to show you is a recreation of that case. So I have taken this scenario. I have plenty of corrupt files from any flavor. So I took a selection of corrupt raw Canon photos. I copied them to a healthy thumb drive. I'm not going to show that to you. I ran Recuva and recovered them, and they were as corrupt as they were in the beginning, of course, just to follow all the steps they took. Then I reformatted the thumb drive, and this is what you're looking at here. So this is a drive containing corrupt Canon RAW photos, and I then formatted the drive. And so then they run Recuva again, only to discover, of course, that they were even further from home. How do you say this? We're gonna run Recuva. I have nothing against Recuva, by the way. I think it's a nice, solid undelete tool with some extras. If you accidentally format a drive, you can try it too. Drive F. I'm going to scan drive F. In options, I'm going to also make sure to tick, where is this? Deep scan. So this means in case it cannot recover files using the file system, it tries to carve them. Only it's not a specialized carver. So if, for example, it recovers a file at cluster whatever, cluster 10,000, if it's then at its carving phase, it will not look again at this cluster 10,000. It will ignore it because it thinks I have already recovered the file that was there. So it's less of a deep scan than JpegDigger. Actually, the new feature, I'm gonna shut up about it. I have a new feature in JpegDigger specially written to recover files from this scenario, which is also called deep scan. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Okay, and we're gonna okay that, and then we're gonna scan this drive F. Now, there were some 140 corrupt Canon RAW files on the drive. A few of them were actually intact. Now, we'll have to wait. 35 files so far out of 140. +140, there was a couple more. Okay. Well, a couple of bogus something that resembled a file name, so it took it for a file name, I guess. These are the raw files. Here's the one accidentally a JPEG that ended up there too. Another one, or is that the same one? Okay. Now, even if they were healthy, I don't think Recuva is able to show the preview of a Canon RAW file. What we can do is look at the header. Well, this actually looks like a more or less healthy header, or at least the magic byte. But this, for example, is total bullshit. And this is part of the problem. If you've seen some of my other videos, I recommend if a file system based tool like Recuva cannot recover the files, it does not detect them or they are corrupt, then use a carver. And what a carver does is, can we pull up that other file again with the more or less intact? Yeah, this. So what a carver, for example, does is look at this byte sequence. This is a common byte sequence for raw photos. And then if it's more intelligent, it will also look at this and say, okay, this is a Canon raw photo. So then it knows this is a CR2 file. But a carver will look at the start of each sector and see if it finds this signature. And then theoretically you could just say, okay, say my camera produces raw files of average of 20 megabytes. What you could do, it's a simple form of carving, is from this point on copy 20 or a little more than 20 megabytes worth of data, put that in a new file, and if you're lucky, you have recovered your raw file. So that's what a carver does. We see here that most of these raw files, they were corrupt, we already know that, do not have this secret signature. So a carver has no way of knowing where this file will start. So that would mean this is the end of the story. We cannot recover those files. The next best thing, if a raw file is corrupt, is trying to get the full resolution JPEG out of it. A JPEG is much smaller than the entire raw file, so there is a higher chance it survives any kind of damage or corruption. And I'll show you what I mean. We're gonna select everything. We're gonna recover everything. Let me see if my destination folder is available. So we're going to recover to C recovered. C recovered. Okay. Do it. And then we can see we will have, I think a few are going to be intact, and the majority is going to be corrupt. So what we had was 140 or so corrupt files, of which the majority was then lost because some clown recommended formatting the drive. So it made it worse. Okay, we can already see what we have here. It's not going very... oh, this is a huge file or something. Oh my god. No, 0 bytes. I rehearsed this, and Recuva was actually able to recover the files. Oh, there they are. Okay, I should have refreshed that. Is it done? It is done. Okay. We can close recover. Yeah, we can close recover. So, what we have now is, where are we now? Oh, here. Recovered. So we see, okay, none of them is intact. Oh, yeah, 2 are intact. And the rest is not. Now, my point was that if a Canon RAW file is corrupt, sometimes the best next thing is to get the full resolution JPEG out of it. They should have done that to begin with. They should have tried that, because I will show you now that these files recovered by Recuva, actually, most of them do contain data, JPEG data. Recovered. I'm just going to select the whole lot. We want a higher resolution JPEG, so this tells JPEG Repair to skip smaller, tiny little thumbnails. Okay, and do it. So there we are. Full resolution JPEGs inside those corrupt recovered files. This one is did not survive it. But okay, you get the idea. Okay, so a few of them had some problems, but the majority we were able to extract full resolution JPEGs from, which is better than nothing. So, should they, if they would have done this right at the start, before formatting and doing all their trickery, they most likely would have been able to recover 140 plus full resolution JPEG files. They ruined that by formatting the drive. So, is this the end of the story? No, it's not the end of the story. I'm gonna now delete this because we're gonna need the folder again. Because, of course, I tried this client to have, I told him to try JPEG. Windows is always so occupied with itself. It's really amazing. JPEG Digger. So this is the new version with this new feature that we're going to use in a moment. The old version, basically, we're dealing with drive F, right? F. The old version works like this, and it will try to recover the files and it will fail. And it will fail because of the reason I explained earlier. It's looking at the start of blocks and tries to find this magic signature, so it can tell, okay, this is the start of a raw file. Since these are no longer intact, the majority of them, it will not find files. Now this JPEG is embedded in a raw file, so it does not necessarily start at such a boundary where a block starts, or even a sector starts. So this is why I invented the deep scan. Yeah, this should do it, I guess. So now we're going to try to recover the files that Recuva could not. By the way, it's not Recuva Recuva is not the only one that cannot do it. I tried all of them. I tried UFS Explorer, I tried R-Studio, I tried Reclaim Me. None of them were able to recover more files than Recuva, some even less, I must say. R-Studio recovered only 2 files. The intact files we saw in the bunch that Recuva recovered. For the rest, it didn't detect a single file. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there should be some 140 raw files on the drive. So this is going to take a while. This deep scan, normally when you carve at block boundaries, and those blocks you try to align to clusters, because normally that's where the start of a file will be, and that allows you to scan a drive faster rather than looking at each individual byte. And so JpegDigger uses a trick to locate these embedded JPEG files without having to look at each individual byte. It's not really a trick. It basically, once it found a file and it recovered it, it knows how large this file is, so it can then jump a block. And also it analyzes in quite large blocks, so it doesn't have to read the disk so much. It can just get a good piece of the disk into the PC's memory, which is faster than the disk, and in that memory it can try to find those JPEG file starts or JPEG data starts, because they're not files yet, they're part of a Canon RAW file, and JpegDigger pulls them out of those corrupt files, those deleted corrupt files, and so basically what I was telling, Recuva couldn't do it, but so could all the big names that R-Studio is one, I think 9 out of 10 professional data recovery engineers will end up using R-Studio for logical data recovery, and they would have found they could recover 2 files in this scenario. So then the other alternative is to use a disk editor and start scanning for those magic bytes manually, but that's a huge undertaking, and if you would pay a professional data recovery engineer to do that for you, you would pay him by the hour probably, and he would be busy for hours. So it will recover close to those 140 files. It doesn't get them all, I discovered. It misses a few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but it's a lot better than nothing, I guess. So, and you can see here these are full resolution JPEGs. It's the same resolution as the raw files for this Canon camera. This bright green bar means the data in those blocks it's reading is high entropy, or has high entropy, I don't know even how to say that. And a property of JPEG data, of compressed data, I should say, and JPEG data is compressed, is that it has high entropy. So at some point we will be able to see it scans and scans and scans and scans, while this bar stays black and black and black. Black means low entropy, and the lowest entropy you can get is all zeros, or all or one specific byte repeating over and over and over again. So in other words, the data is very predictable. All zeros is very predictable, and high entropy data is chaotic. So it measures the level of chaos, so to speak. The highest entropy you normally get with encrypted data. So this goes from this is a scale from 0 to 8 bits per byte, and 8 bits per byte probably means that the data is encrypted, and you can get it, for example, if you're scanning memory cards from smartphones. Okay, now we will not be detecting any more files. I tried this already, so I suggest I cancel. So basically the purpose of this video is a couple of things. If you have corrupt data, if you have lost data, never let anyone tell you to format the drive and with the explanation that it would somehow increase your chances of recovering or repairing the data. Never do that. And also, in between the lines, I have told you there are two kinds of data recovery tools. One is the file system approach, like Recuva, and one is the carving approach, like JpegDigger, but also PhotoRec is a famous one. And then with regards to carvers need to find magic signatures at block boundaries. A sector is the smallest block boundary, the smallest unit, so you can scan every 512 bytes and see if you find a signature at the start of those 512 bytes. Ideally, you can work out the cluster size, because a cluster is multiple sectors, so then there's less spots you need to check for a signature. And in this case, where we have the combination of a formatted drive containing corrupt files, so we don't have a file system to go on, and we cannot use those magic bytes either, then it becomes very difficult, but not impossible. So I hope this someone helps. I hope someday this will help someone, and or at least I hope I've told you something you didn't know yet. Should I explain? Well, basically now it's a matter of selecting the files and copying them. I will copy a few to show you I'm not bluffing or anything. And it starts copying. Okay, we can look. And here they are. Full res JPEGs I know it's not ideal. If you're a real photographer and you wanted to edit and whatnot the photo, then of course I know there's more data in a raw file than in a JPEG, but for some this may be enough and better than nothing. So I'm gonna end the video while it copies the files. Thanks for watching. I decided for completeness sake to also show R-Studio, so that I cannot be accused of you're not doing it right or something. Oh, I passed it. Let's try Stellar 2. Stellar Phoenix. Photo recovery. These are demos, by the way. I don't have the full versions. What's this? No. Why does shit try to be intelligent? F. Advanced. What are DGVU file? What are they? What are they? Is it a format? Oh yeah. Okay. I thought of the ransomware. I thought, do they have some kind of special trickery to repair those? F. Scan. No data found. So impressive. And then R-Studio. Yeah, okay. I will demo it. So we can just try to mount it. Mount it. It will bring us nothing. We go back. We'll tell it to scan it. Extra search. Huh? Oh, shut up. For known file types. Clear all. Canon. Jawohl. And let's try thingy too. JPEG. Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. Scan. We have yellow thingies, big fat directories. We have boot sectors. We have specific file documents. Oh, 4 already. Then I think this afternoon when I tried it, I probably didn't tick JPEG. So I did do something wrong. I gave it less credit than it deserved. Yeah. Okay, this is what we had already. Oh no. Oh. Look at that. Well, these are the same thingies that Recuva found. And although the directory entry says I've got a CR2 file, the header says, oh no. They all have F5. Weird. And we have something else, okay, blah 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 blah, extra files. These are the raw files. We got two of those. These are intact, by the way, which is nice because they're original raw files. But these are the ones that we could get using Recuva as well. And it says we found some JPEG files. Okay, we found two JPEG files. Two different JPEG files. Okay. So this is what R-Studio finds. No, I don't want to save it. So I just wanted to show that too, just to be complete and just to make you aware of the awesomeness of JPEG Digger. This was it.